Hello, my loves, and welcome back to the Someone Had to Say It podcast. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kylie Nel. I'm a spiritual life and business mentor and a trauma-informed energy healer. And I am so excited. This is going to be a really incredible episode. I have had quite a few conversations with people in my community on Instagram just that are looking for support within this topic of balancing the masculine and the feminine energies. And I felt it to be quite befitting because I'm actually sitting in my kitchen recording this. I'll actually take my mic a little bit closer. And I'm sitting here in my kitchen. If you're watching on YouTube, you can probably see a little bit of the kitchen background. And I'm actually just I was so inspired because we're currently moving into spring here. And so the weather is just beautiful. My garden is busy blooming. And I just felt so inspired to sit here and record about masculine and feminine energies while watching the view from my garden and just basking in that. So it feels very true to my nature. Today, my loves, it's going to be a really insightful topic of balancing masculine and feminine energies. And it's so interesting when I really thought of this episode, and this episode came as a download for me to do and record. It was really around the fact of there's this constant obsession around balance. That's the best way for me to put it. There's this constant obsession I find that we have as human beings around balance. And we feel that certain things in our lives will facilitate that balance, whether it's having more money, whether it's having, children and having kids, whether it's a certain staying in a certain part of the world, certain routines. We hope that things will facilitate this balance for us and hopefully just give us that permission slip to fully live in what we're actually seeking the balance for. And that becomes very difficult because then you're kind of stuck in the sense of well, should I be fully in my masculine right now? Should I be fully in my feminine? What does that look like? What does balance look like? I find that I'm either procrastinating all the time or I'm really chill and I don't want to work. And you're maybe very much, I had one of my clients say this to me the other day. She's like, I feel like I'm very much not in the 3D lately. I'm just channeling a lot of things. And I'm like, yeah, you're in your feminine right now. This is the phase that you need to be in. Support yourself in that. And it's well, do I just continue taking action? Am I just going to burn out again? We have such deep confusion because our natural rhythms have been so disrupted. And so today's episode is really just to kind of speak about the masculine and feminine energies and what it looks like to be able to find your own ebb and flow. The first thing that I really want to say is that balance isn't a 50-50 split. This isn't about being 50% feminine and 50% masculine and having to have that perfect split. It's really not about that. That's why I feel like balance is something that we use for scales. Those old school scales where you'd put things on either side and then have to balance, that's balance. Or if you're walking a slack line or you're riding a horse, or if you're doing something that requires balance, that is the act of balancing in that sense. But as human beings and our masculine and feminine energies in our lives, balance isn't really something that exists within the human nature because we're continuously ebbing and flowing. It's if you look at the tides, this is just the vision I got as I was speaking about ebbing and flowing. If you look at the tides of the ocean, the waves come in and they move out, and there's this constant just continuous flow. There's high tide, there's low tide, there's currents that flow in between. There is this continuous ebb and flow. And it's very much the same with our masculine and our feminine energies, is this continuous ebb and flow that happens. And if you're in my world, if you've been here for quite some time, you've maybe heard me speak about it before, is I don't really believe in consistency. I don't believe in imparting consistency into human beings. Consistency is here for man-made products. This bottle can be consistently produced, look the same all the time. What I do believe in, though, is constancy, and that we can keep our vibration constant. We can keep our thoughts constant. We can keep our intentions constant, and then allow ourselves again to ebb and flow within the masculine as to how we show up for our goals, for our desires, for our needs, all these things. But it's because we try and look for consistency and we try and attach to roboticism because it's a means of control. It provides a sense of safety. It creates a sense of predictability. These are all things that the human nature has come to really love. because it again provides a sense of safety. Like we do not like what we cannot control. And so really leaning into this conversation of like masculine and feminine energy is I very much, my intention for this space is to open you up to understanding and finding your own flow, and to really like divorce the narrative that you have to have this balance, that you have to always be looking out for balance, and that your life has to live in these stop start in increments. Like you have to go all in and then burn out and then recover, or you find that you just like you struggle to follow through on like masculine things and sticking to routine and like feeling like there's something wrong with you. Like I really want to end those narratives for you in this space today and allow you to connect even more deeply so into this ebb and flow of life. Now, even if we just look at like the yin and yang symbol, my energy healer actually brought this to my attention, and it really opened up a lot for me. And she's like, if you look at the yin and yang symbol, on either side, there's still a little bit of a yin and the yang and a yang and the yin. There's always a little bit like that dot that you see in that, like that pattern that the yin and the yang make. Like there's always still a little bit of the masculine and the feminine, and there's always a little bit of the feminine and the masculine. They never occur in absolute times. And so it's really important to realize that balancing your masculine and feminine energies, I very much imagine and picture it to be like holding the reins of a horse. Like you're holding the reins and you're able to actually hold back and support where you need to, but then also give where you need to so that the horse can perform. Like in horse riding, we can't always, like if you're going over a jump, like or a certain like let's use jumping, just one example. I wanted to go into dressage examples. I'm like, Kylie, like don't overcomplicate this for yourself. Like before you enter a jump, like yes, it depends on your horse, but you may like hold the horse back slightly, and then a few strides out, you gently release the reins so that they can actually like be able to take that jump. But you're not going to throw all the reins away and give away the support, because then they're going to lose their rhythm altogether. They're probably going to lose their stride, and they're going to fall out of their collect, like when I say fall out of their collection, but we always like say that the horse is collected before arriving at a jump. Like they're collected and ready, their strides are right, they're able to make the move. And so if you're just going to throw those reins to them and like throw away that support, they're not going to be able to make that move. They're going to lose it altogether. And so it's important to still keep that support structure, but give a little bit of leeway. Now, that is a beautiful like metaphor to kind of just explain like the masculine and feminine structures, because our masculine structures are very much like the riverbanks. They're there to provide support. And it's important to realize that we need these things. Like we need to have support, we need to have structure. And your feminine is like the water that flows in between those banks. It's the wild, it's the intuitive side, it's the creative side, it's more spontaneous. But we need to have the riverbanks to contain the feminine. We need to have the riverbanks to contain the water. Otherwise, they'll just be flooding and the feminine would not know where to go. The feminine would literally just be this like overarching complete flood of things, because there wouldn't be a space for the feminine to be. And so this is really like the first invitation I want to give you, is to redefine what the masculine and the feminine is for you and to you. And really to see your masculine as like, these are the energies I pull on to support myself. So supporting yourself, whether it's with routines, whether it's masculine energies in terms of, you know, that every Monday you have certain tasks that you do in your business, or that you tend to certain things that you need to get done. Whether it's setting like I wanted to think of like a different word for structure, but it's not coming through to me. Whether you even set a structure to be like, cool, like from this hour to this hour, I purely just work on, you know, doing my inner work. From an hour before bed, I journal. Like it's little things that you create for yourself as like disciplines and devotions to create structure. Because when we create the structure, our feminine naturally has the space to be creative and to flow in. The feminine loves to create. It's not something, especially as women, that we naturally have to force, because we naturally have that feminine connection. We are predominantly feminine energy. We do have the masculine in us, but we are predominantly in feminine energy. And so when we are able to provide ourselves the support structures to live life a little bit more easily, and to be able to have like, cool, like this is what you need to do when you need to do it, this is like not necessarily how you're going to do it, because that's the feminine part, but to really just put in those little disciplines for yourself to be like, where can I support myself more? Now, something that I really want to like touch upon that's just like hit me like a ton of bricks as I was sitting here is that we really need to realize that being able to balance and finding our symbiotic relationship with our masculine and feminine energies are so important, because they do exist. These polar opposites do exist. If we look at the law of gender, if we look at the law of polarity, like opposites do exist. To every masculine energy, there is a feminine energy. And we even see this in nature. It's all around us. Like there's constantly like this masculine and feminine flow of energies. And so when we're able to really ascertain that and realize that there is always a masculine and feminine like symbiotic pole, it's not really about trying to find a balance between those two to be like, how many days of the week can I take off so I can be in my feminine? How many days do I want to work? Instead, it's really looking at like, how can I make these two work in a symbiotic relationship? How can I allow these two energies to complement each other and feel supportive within one another? So this is really going to call you to getting to know yourself a lot better and deeper. And it comes with curiosity and it comes with self-exploration. And it also comes through healing. Like I, for instance, had such huge realizations this year around the way that I work. And because of a point of I actually reflected a lot on the episodes in my life or the periods that I burnt out. Like there are about two. Yes, there's two. There's two very distinct periods in my life where I burnt out quite hectically. One one was when I was competing in bodybuilding, and the second was actually in after one of the first years of being an entrepreneur, and when I reached like my first like multi six figures. I remember that was a burnout phase for me. Like I was completely burnt out. And it's because I very much do when I'm very passionate about something, I go all or nothing and I go like all in. I'm just like fully in there. I'm like, you cannot take me away. Like I need to just go, go, go. But I realized that my all or nothing mentality was always very rooted in scarcity wounds of realizing, oh, I'm not doing enough. I always need to over deliver. I always need to overperform. So my masculine was a very wounded space for me for such a long time. I find this with a lot of the women that I work with. The moment we start stepping into a state of like healing and we start stepping into more of our like divine healed feminine era, suddenly when you're taking off that cloak of survival and just constantly having to be on all the time, you have to actually sit with your masculine and redefine what that relationship looks like. Because in so many ways, like your feminine had to compensate, she had to take a back seat, and your masculine had to over deliver, it had to overperform. And so I really had to heal that relationship with my masculine to bring trust in again, to be like, I can be that like worker bee self, like for those in human design, like I'm a Manny Jane. So I love to work. Like I love to always be creatively inspired. It's just part of my nature. But in that like ability to be able to just go back to my masculine and trust my masculine, to be like, we're not operating from a place of wounding anymore. We're not operating from a place of scarcity. And you can trust yourself. Like you can trust that you're going to know when to pull back and you're going to know when to give. And you're not going to go back to those places of burnout because we're not available for that anymore. So you may also need to like redefine what your relationship is within each of these spaces. Same with my feminine. Like I found that through all the reflective work I've been doing, that my feminine also very much so was the relationship with my feminine was from a very wounded space. Like my relationship with my feminine was disconnected in where I didn't really feel a lot of my emotions or express them or hold space for them. My intuition, my connection to my intuition was there, but it's the self-belief really backing it wasn't fully anchored in. And very much so my feminine also came from a deeply wounded space, because I over sexualized her. I was trying to again like compensate with this overness to be over sexual with the feminine so that I could feel a need of love and acceptance and all these things. And so that also attracted like really traumatic experiences into my life and created just events that didn't feel authentic and true to me. And so even with my feminine, like that was something I had to really look at healing. Well, what does my relationship look like with my feminine? And to trust her again, and to also trust that I can step into that sensual, sexual self, because that is a feminine. So she's sexual and she's sensual and she's connected and she feels good. To know that I can connect back to that energy, but that again, it's not going to come from a place of woundingness. It's not going to feel like the words coming to my mind right now. It's like, it's not going to feel like I'm selling my soul for sex. Like literally, it's just going to be like, cool, like I'm activated and turned on simply by being a woman and by experiencing life. And I get to bask in that essence. And so you really want to think about, like, as you're really looking at finding your unique flow between your masculine and feminine, is what is my relationship like between these two? And are there things that need to be healed? And perhaps you're like, I don't know what my relationship with my masculine or feminine is like. Well, that's your invitation to start exploring. That's your invitation to start digging deeper, because there's definitely some golden nuggets there for you to unlock, to be able to find your ebb and flow. So if we look at like what the masculine and the feminine energy is, I feel like I've given like quite good examples here to show you the difference. But it's really about realizing that your masculine is that innate action energy. It's the energy to do, it's the energy to put in discipline, it's the energy to provide structure and foundation. The feminine on the other side is here to provide love and nurturing and support. She follows her heart. The masculine follows more of the logic, which we need both. Like, yes, we want to be heart led and we want to follow our heart, but we also want to make sure that we're keeping ourselves safe and that we're not making decisions that stress our capacity or making decisions that feel out of integrity. So we need that masculine there. So it's realizing that these two energies are really there to support each other, and you can define what that support looks like for you. Like within a given day, for example, just to give you an example of today, like I was like, right, my masculine knew that I had to get things done. And all the dogs are like barking outside. That's hilarious. Luckily, they're not mine. My kitties are inside. Nope, nope, no barking, no barking. And funny enough, that's really had to become like my truth as well. Like today, for example, how did I manage like my masculine and my feminine energies? I really was like, cool, this morning I went to go get my hair done. So I was like, amazing. I had my hair done because I'm doing a photo shoot again this weekend. And so whilst I was there, I was like relaxing. I got a massage. My feminine was being taken care of. And then I felt creatively inspired. And my masculine was like, right, we know that we need to get a few things done. So one of them is that there's a new free 3-day podcast series that I'm that's happening next week called Dissolving the Inner Critic. And it's all about releasing like the releasing like your shame and your judgment from your system, but also healing the relationship you have with yourself. And so whilst I was at the hairdresser, I felt so creatively inspired. I was like, cool, like let me just finish like all the logistics for this so that it's good to go and people can opt in and I can welcome them into the space. So that was how I allowed like my feminine and my masculine to flow. And so it's really important to see like how can you allow your masculine and feminine to flow more to support you. It doesn't have to be black or white. My masculine literally knew like I want to get a podcast recorded this week. Like I have a dear friend arriving tonight. She's staying with us for the weekend. We're gonna have such a fun time. So I knew that like from Thursday onwards for the rest of this week, it's gonna be pretty jam-packed. And I don't want to put myself in like a stressful position or not get to my commitments that I've set out for myself. And so I was like, right. I was like, let me have something to eat before I start recording my podcast. I tended to my needs. The feminine kicked in. She nurtured and tended to my needs. And then I sat down and I was like, cool, I know I want to record this podcast, like balancing masculine and feminine energies. My masculine made a few notes just to like keep my thoughts straight. Otherwise, ADHD goes like, whoo, runs wild. And then I just hit record and I was like, let's have fun. Like, what feels exciting and supportive? And literally everything inside of me was like sitting right here with like this incredible light. It's like afternoon sun outside. The garden looks beautiful. Like, that feels supportive for me instead of sitting in my office today to record. And here we are recording, and it feels juicy and it feels easy. And so when we're able to actually understand like and create these supportive structures for ourselves, what's really beautiful is you find that whatever you do starts to energize you more, as opposed to feeling like they're energy drainers, as opposed to feeling like they're tapping you out. So it's really I feel like this is a really juicy, like just topic, and I can speak about this for days, but I wanted to bring this introduction to the podcast around really just looking at your masculine and feminine energy and considering what they mean to you and what do you need to heal in those relationships. Because the moment you start healing within those relationships, you find that that symbiosis starts to occur and you're able to ebb and flow a lot easier. You're able to find your own support. You're able to actually allow your creativity to flow more, allow your like feminine nature to come out more. And like really step deeply into that space. There's something I wanted to say now, and it just completely left me. Oh, oh. But I am feeling a divine call to do a masterclass on the masculine and feminine energy. So that will come soon. That will come soon. Oh, my loves. But before I head off with this episode, there's one last thing I wanted to mention is that a way that you can really start to look at how can you find support between your masculine and feminine energies, because you will find that at certain periods you will be more in your feminine and your masculine. You may be more in your masculine and your feminine than in other periods. Like I can feel in November, I very much so have a lot more of my masculine energy in and like turned on right now. But for majority of the past 9 months, I've been working a lot on my feminine, really to heal, to come back to her. I mean, I'm at a stage now where I'm like hardly wearing makeup, like took my falsies off, like my feminine's just been so healed. And so I can now step into my masculine confidently because my feminine can come along and she knows how to operate. And so a great way to be able to find this flow is two things. One, to look at the moon cycle. So actually looking at like when it's full moon, how does your energy feel? When it's new moon, how does your energy feel? And then being able to tailor how you show up for your goals and how you show up for life according to that. So for instance, I know that I'm trying to think of a really like recent example now. So for example, like I personally know that round about like the full moon, my energy is usually quite like tapped. Full moons are very magical for me, but they're also very expansive, and I can either feel very tired or very energized. So usually when it's around a full moon, I'll always check in and be like, how do you feel right now? And I try not to plan too many big things around a full moon unless it's closer to the time, so I can support myself in that way. So have a notice like how do you feel with moon cycles? And then also with your bleed cycles. Like with your menstrual cycle, when you're ovulating, you'll have a completely different energy than when you're on your bleed. And you'll have a completely different energy like right before your bleed than after your bleed. So understanding where you're at in your cycle will also support you in knowing what energies do I need to lean in more now. Like I, for instance, know that right now, like I'm currently busy with my bleed. So that to me means that in my training, especially with running and stuff, like I'm a lot more in my feminine when it comes to looking after my body when I'm in my bleed. So I'll take like baths where I usually just love to shower. So I'll take like really hot Epsom salt baths. I'll focus walks, going on a lot of walks, especially before my bleed and during my bleed, if I can, like I'll go sauna often, like just to give my body that support. Where in the periods where I'm not on my bleed, then I'm a lot more on with my training and I allow that masculine energy to infuse into my health and fitness space. Where now, for instance, with like business things, because I knew this week with my bleed, I'm going to be a little bit more my feminine with my health and fitness. I was able to support myself in switching more into my masculine in my business. So I was like, cool, I know I have to get a few tasks done from like the first half of this week before Thursday. So, and that's quite a handful of tasks. How can I support myself? Right, let's go. So it's all about finding like that masculine and feminine pull between both sides. Oh my loves, this is such a juicy episode. I hope this really like just opened up your eyes to looking at the masculine and feminine energies in such a different way because it's so potent and powerful. And with that being said, as I mentioned, we have a free 3 day, trying saying that fast, free 3 day podcast series happening next week. It's starting the 16th, which I believe is Thursday, 16th of November. And it's all about dissolving the inner critic. So if you want to work on your relationship with yourself, if you want to become your own best friend and just experience more success and ease in reaching your goals, and just living a good fucking life, then babe, I suggest that you opt in for the series. I'll leave the link below. It's going to be so, so good. And you'll see that as we start, every single day is going to build up onto each other. And I truly and wholeheartedly know that the codes that I'm going to be sharing in Dissolving the Inner Critic is really going to open up an expansive portal for you to have a beautiful relationship with yourself and also just experience such deeper internal freedom. So, that being said, I'm sending you so much love. Bye for now.